Hi, my name is Bob Arnold. I'm an attorney here in Miami. I'm primarily focused on business, but as part of my business practice, I also do real estate. So what I thought I would do today is give you an overview of the process for buying real estate in Miami. It's really in the United States, but it's particularly in Miami because every jurisdiction is different. It's different on the East Coast than it is on the West Coast, and it's different from state to state. In fact, it's different from county to county, because each county has their own recording requirements and their own rules and regulations which you must follow. So real estate really is a local practice. This overview is designed for people who are either unfamiliar with the process or for foreign buyers who are unfamiliar with buying property in the United States. And I put this list of things together as I've worked in this practice over the last 2 years because as we are in Miami, we're seeing a lot of foreign buyers. And by the way, at any time you have any questions, you can send me an email. It should be blasted on the bottom of the screen here, Bob Arnold at the Victoria, or Bob at thevictorialawgroup.com. And I will send to you a copy of this outline, a sample FAR bar contract, a sample HUD-1, our pricing sheet, anything else you need that might be helpful in terms of your own real estate transaction here in Miami. So the first thing you want to focus on, I believe, is what I call the preparation phase. Now, this is my outline. I've put it together. Other attorneys will tell you other things. I think the most important thing is to get the financing in place first. Even if you are a cash buyer, and especially if you are from outside the United States, you need to make sure that the money is going to be here on time. Obviously, certain regimes in South America and around the world have restrictive capital movement structures in place because they want to prevent capital flight. So sometimes it takes as much as 2 weeks for a simple amount of money over $10,000 to actually hit the United States. That's something you need to be mindful of. Even if you are a cash buyer, you need to make sure that your money actually is in place. Secondly, for financing, and this is directed at foreign buyers, you are eligible for a mortgage in the United States. The only consideration is you'll have to put down between 35 and sometimes as much as 45%. And this is kind of standard practice. I don't know that anybody, I don't know of anyone who goes below 35%, but 35% in terms of buying the real estate is a pretty good value, especially if you think about what you're getting and what you're doing with your money. So the first thing is, I think, to get your financing in place. The second step, I believe, because again, this is directed towards foreign buyers, is to determine what kind of entity you're going to accept the property as. In the United States, many people buy real estate properties under an LLC or a corporation or something else because they want to take advantage of the tax laws. I'm not a tax attorney. I would advise you to consult with your own personal tax specialist, but I know that under $1 million, if the transaction size is valued at less than $1 million, it's really not necessary or advantageous to structure it as an LLC or even an offshore entity, because up to $1 million, you have enough of the tax offsets in place to where it's not at all beneficial based on the amount of money that you have to spend to form the companies to even bother to form the companies. So step 2 is figure out what kind of entity you want to take it as, whether it's an LLC or a foreign organization or an individual husband and wife, single person buying. That's a personal decision. And the other point on purchasing a piece of real estate as an investment, if you're going to purchase it as an investment and you are going to put all these structures in place, you have to factor in the cost of the annual operating cost of the structure, whether it be an LLC or a BVI or whatever. There are costs associated with it for maintaining it. There are annual operating fees, there are professional services fees, and then some jurisdictions even have tax filing fees. So if you're doing it as an investment, if you're buying real estate as an investment, you have to factor into the ROI equation the type of structure that you're going to operate under. Step 3 in the process is, I think, finding a realtor. You don't need a realtor to do the transaction, but I do think that a professional realtor actually adds value. I think a professional realtor can bring a lot to the table. They can tell you about, they can give you what's called market intelligence. They can tell you what different condominiums are doing, what the market is doing, what's available, whether it's listed on MLS or if it's, what they call a shadow listing, whether it's something that's being held by the bank. They can tell you where the distressed properties are. But those are, professional realtors. If you get just any sort of fly-by-night realtor, then it's probably of very little value. If you're going to use a realtor, I always suggest or recommend a professional realtor, someone who does it for a living. And if you have any questions about that or if you need a recommendation for that, I can definitely do that for you in South Florida, as we work with a lot of realtors. So now I want to talk to you about finding the property. There are a lot of ways to find the property. Once you get the realtor, a realtor can help you find the property based on your own criteria. However, there are advertisements in magazines, newspapers, postcards all over. There's no shortage of inventory really in Miami for investment properties or even second homes or third homes. So there's a number of ways to find. One caveat that I want to issue, and that is on finding either a realtor or a property online. Now, I'm not trying to badmouth anybody or badmouth any organization, but there are a lot of people who are advertising things that they don't have the right to list. There are a lot of so-called realtors who advertise on vehicles like Craigslist who don't have licenses, who don't have the property, who are just really out to scam people. So if you're going to look for a realtor or the property online, I would just issue the caveat that you be very careful and do a little bit of due diligence before you end up in a very, very bad situation and you need a lawyer for a situation other than just buying a condo. So now we're moving into what I call the second phase, and that's securing the property. And the first step, or actually the fifth step overall in securing the property, is the contract, getting the contract. I want to spend a minute about the FAR bar contract in the state of Florida. FAR stands for Florida Association of Realtors. BAR is your local bar organization. The FAR bar, which is the standard residential contract that's used in Miami, has been approved by both of those organizations. If you're doing just a simple residential closing, I highly recommend the FAR bar contract. If a seller insists on using another version of the contract, or if they even want to use their own version that's drawn up by their attorney, I'd be very skeptical. In fact, I might even insist upon it, because there are very few situations where I can imagine where a FAR bar contract is not sufficient. So the first thing I look for is, or first recommendation I make, is to get your contract in the FAR bar format. And I just want to spend a quick second on the FAR bar. This is a real world case study. I had a buyer come to me and they weren't using a realtor. They were using our services as an attorney to review the contract and to help them do some market intelligence, etc. And they had a seller who wanted to use their own contract, and I objected. I said, no way, because they had left out purposely a lot of the protections that are in the FAR bar. So I pushed back, and they wanted to sell the property, so finally they gave us the FAR bar contract. However, they had crossed out a lot of the provisions that were in the FAR bar. I said to the buyers, obviously there's something going on here, there's something they don't want you to know. I strongly would recommend that you either get them to submit a FAR bar unchanged or not go through with this contract. So a little bit of back and forth. What we determined was that the seller had made a lot of changes to the house. He didn't get permits, he didn't get condo approval. So he's afraid of that being found out by the buyer, and that would therefore cause the buyer to suffer quite a bit of liability if it were found out by either the city or by the condo association. So that's just one real world case study of why the FAR bar is important. The FAR bar provides these protections in them that you're not going to get by some contract that has been purposely designed to elude you. So we're still on the contract, and we're talking about now the price. How do you determine what the price is? Well, how do you determine what the price of anything is? Really, it's about market conditions. There are other factors that come into it. There are emotional factors. You fall in love with a piece of property the first time you see it and you have to have it. Of course, I wouldn't use that as a negotiating tool. But there are several factors involved in determining what the price is. A good realtor can help you determine what a good price is. And of course, if you fall in love with something and you're willing to pay a premium, then there's nothing that anybody can warn you against with that. Another pricing consideration in Miami, especially because Miami was kind of ground zero for the mortgage crisis in the United States, are distressed properties and distressed sellers. You often can get a very good deal if you find a distressed property, and by distressed I mean either a short sale or what they call REO, which is a bank-owned property. And if you are a cash buyer, it's very, very likely that you're going to be able to get a very good price on distressed properties. If anybody offers you a distressed property at market value, you should probably laugh at them and walk away, or lowball counter, because there's no way that these distressed properties are selling at what people consider these days to be 2007 prices. So there are lots of portions of the contract that you should be aware of. The most important things from the lawyer's perspective: the escrows, the escrow amounts, the escrow dates, the down payments, when the funding is due, when the funding is necessary, the closing dates, any contingencies, the inspection period, the appraisal period, and the title requirements. Those are the key things that you're looking at when you're looking at a contract. You know, it's not simply what the price is. There are so many other things that can impact how much you actually end up paying for the property that it's important to have the contract thoroughly reviewed and thoroughly considered before signing.